Thank you for staying with us. It's some 36 minutes off the top of the hour, and we have Suleiman Brima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, joining the conversation. Mr. Brima, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Ben.
Thank you so much for your patience with us this morning. How's Monday treating you this week, at the start of the week?
Well, I suppose it's going to be a great week. The morning is fair and clear in terms of the weather, and we look forward to a great week. Unfortunately, over the weekend, we lost one of our great heroes, Honorable John Indebugri, which is a very sad development.
Yes.
And we pray for his soul to have a peaceful rest, and hope that as we go along, those of us who are young would have the bold and courageous spirit that he had to fight for generations and to fight for people of the North and also the entire Ghana.
Indeed. And I recall, an interaction I had with him some time back. It was really sad news to hear that the statesman, so to speak, had, left us. But it's the path we shall all take. That is why we have to do good deeds, do good things, serve the Lord, and hopefully end up with him when we pass on. But I want to run these two quick issues by you before we get into the newspapers. Some of the newspapers carry this as well, but I'm talking about the hike, 20% hike in transport fares. As per what we've been hearing, I mean, the TUC on one hand, not related, but the TUC has been talking about taking off petroleum taxes. Well, the transport unions are saying same, that you need to do some work on it, and now they're increasing their fares by 20%. What's your quick take on that? Because, I mean, there are so many dynamics to it. Fuel prices are going up, and ordinary people, too, don't see their salaries increasing any. So it's quite a tricky situation. What's your quick take on that?
Well, I think it's a reflection of the general economic situation in our country and the difficulties that people are going through. Right. This would have a significant toll on the commuting public. But at the same time, we need to also acknowledge that the cost of running the transport business has also gone up significantly. For example, fuel prices. We all buy fuel, and we know that over the course of the last few months, fuel prices have gone up significantly. The city has not been doing quite well, and that would mean that prices of parts for cars would also go up significantly. And so, as I said, it's a general reflection of the economic situation. People are going to bear the brunt in terms of the high cost of transport, but transport owners, I suppose, have also been enduring a significant cost in terms of maintaining their vehicles, running the vehicles in terms of the fuel cost and so on and so forth. I just think that as a country, we need to continue to do the best that we can in terms of leadership. People complain about the taxes on the fuel. The president, as I recall, had said, well, if we take off the taxes, we are going to lose so much. I think the general thing is, what are we using the taxes for? I believe that is what bothers a lot of people. It's not about how much we commit to taxes. If we see our taxes working for us, if we see our roads are done, electricity is on, water is running, schools are well set up, and all the other economic indicators that help improve living conditions of people. If we see all those things working, I believe people would even be happier if they are paying more. But unfortunately, we don't see that, and that is where a lot of people have concerns. So we have to continue to dialogue. We have to continue to work together and see how we can improve conditions for people.
While this is going on, the transport operators are saying they can't handle it anymore. They have to hike prices. You recall last year, in a sort of protest move, if you like, protesting, they decided not to hike fares, but to just have a blackout on a certain day. They went till mid-morning, and there were interactions, and they stopped. But is it justified that they also want to increase their transport fares, considering all the dynamics?
Well, I think it is, because as I said a while ago, the transport operators incur cost on running their businesses, cost in relation to fuel, cost in relation to maintaining the cars, cost in relation to paying drivers. And of course, these drivers, I suppose, will be demanded more because they also live within the same economy. They buy food, they buy items that are, increasing in terms of prices each and every day. And so everyone is demanding for more. And certainly the transport owners would have to also make ends meet. And to that extent, I think that they are justified. As a country, it's quite a shame that we haven't been able to develop the public transport sector in such a way that it could become a major boost, in terms of commuting, taking people from one place to the other. President Kufuor started what became known as the Kufuor Buses, which I think was a very, very good start. But over the years, we didn't see a build-up on that. Under President Mahama, we saw the introduction of what I believe is called the Ayalolo Buses, which I believe was an effort to also start complement the public sector transport system. But it didn't also turn out to be as efficient as it should be. So far, I don't think that we've made any...
Well, on that, when you speak of the Ayalolo, our bus rapid transport system or transit system, you go to other jurisdictions and you'll see why. We don't have designated lanes for them. You go to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, they have designated lanes for motorcycles and bicycles and the rest. So some of the problems we see here with Okada and the rest, they wouldn't see there. If you don't have a designated, route or road for your bus rapid transits or transport systems, obviously they'll have to compete with other buses on the road, which in the end makes no sense because that's the whole idea. So I just wanted to chip in that bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I believe it was under the Mahama regime or so when we started seeing some lanes being constructed in certain parts of Accra, specifically designated for the Ayalolo buses. But I don't think that over the years, there have been that significant governmental intervention to improve the road transport sector in terms of public intervention. As I said, the President Kufuor effort was quite significant. I think across the country, we saw those buses being introduced and the numbers were quite good. Till date, you still even see some of those buses serving communities in the hinterlands. And I believe that if subsequent governments had prioritized the public sector transport, we would have seen a major boost in that area. And that would have helped reduce cost for people, improve efficiency in road transport and all of that. But perhaps that has not been the priority for the governments after President Kufuor. And again, even the Kufuor intervention, we also saw the issues of corruption coming up. And I think our country is literally sick in almost every aspect. And we have to work hard towards improving really all the aspects. We have a full ministry for transport. And you ask yourself, what are we seeing? We have a full ministry for railways under this government. And people keep saying that, well, the railway sector is improving. But we want to see the real impact. We want to see the tangible and visible impact if the rail sector is improving. Again, that's another area. If people can commute by train from Accra to Tema or Accra to Sawam or Sawam to Accra, I believe it will ease the traffic on the roads. And sometimes the transport cost is also as a result of the heavy traffic on the road, something that a distance that should take you like 20 to 25 minutes. Sometimes you are on it for 2 hours, burning fuel, time being wasted and all of that. So the public sector transport agenda is something that we have to really prioritize as a country.
And just to wrap so we can focus more on the papers, I just wanted your thoughts on some of the matters we're considering this morning. You say a lot of things in this country do not make sense, and then we're focusing on the transport systems. How about this? Another matter that we're discussing today. Sprinter buses. I'm sure you've sat in one before at some point. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see how they operate. I mean, even without putting words in your mouth, what has been your experience with some of these Sprinter buses you have sat in the past? Just share with us before I even tell you what I'm about to say.
Well, I think that there's so much risk involved in those buses. It appears that there is a general notion that, if you want speed, if you want quick service, and so on, your best choice would be these sprinter buses. And maybe because of that notion, the drivers who also use these cars overspeed, can be very reckless. And again, it's all because there is limited supervision. The regulations may be there, but are the regulations enforced as they should be? I doubt they are. And quite a number of times when I hear about road accidents, it happens that it involves many of these sprinter buses and these urban trotro plying intercity. Normally the ones plying within the city, yes, you would encounter the reckless driving, the wrong overtaking, using wrong lanes to have a quick dash, and so on and so forth. But in terms of accidents that then result in casualties and so on, you witness a lot of that with these sprinter buses on the intercity routes, Accra, Kumasi, Accra, Cape Coast, and so on and so forth. So we need to do more, again, still on the private road transport sector.
And you've narrated it, in a spot on manner. Overspeeding, recklessness, sheer recklessness on the road. And you can guess what that results in, a lot of accidents. Now, there are some who are saying, let's restrict them to intra-city operation, not intercity operation. What do you think about that?
Again, if our bus transport systems were working, like I said, when President Kufuor introduced these, what became known as the Kufuor buses, a lot of it was for intercity transportation. So, for example, there are some of those buses that until recently were plying Koforidua Boku, Koforidua Tamale, Kumasi Techiman, Accra Cape Coast, Accra Takrady, and all of that. But I believe that those buses that were procured during President Kufuor's era and the few ones that were introduced under subsequent governments have either all broken down or are no longer roadworthy. And so to restrict them to intercity and not allow them to provide the service that they are providing now would also be result in a lot of hardships for the commuting public, because it is not as though the cars are there, they struggle to find passengers for these intercity service that they provide. Sometimes people queue to wait for these cars. And so we have to consider the challenges and the difficulties that the public will face if we were to take that action. If we are to do that, then there must be some intervention to cater for whatever we would be losing in terms of services to the public. If we introduce more bigger buses, for example, if STC were to expand its service, its fleet, and be able to run all the intercity services that are required, right. Why not? I think these buses can be limited to intercity. Yeah.
Well, Suleimana, let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper now. And democracy must move beyond ballot box, as Asante charges hosts. He hosts a Durbar in Memphis as well. And there is West Africa's dangerous tag, worrying. That's according to the CDS. The story is on page 16. Just a snippet of that. The Chief of the Defense Staff, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama, has expressed worry that West Africa's potential to develop has been saddled with the unpleasant reputation of being the most dangerous region in recent times. Apart from the coup d'etats, the constantly evolving terror threat in the region made it even more worrying for governments in the region to harness the vast resources under a peaceful environment to enhance the well-being of the citizenry, he said. Then there's reduction in benchmark values. And just hold on for me, Suleimana. I'm just putting them together briefly so you can react to those that you'd like to react to. Reduction in benchmark values. State loses 9 billion Ghana cedis. And the government has not lost nearly 9 billion in revenue from taxes generated on imported goods as a result of the reduction in the benchmark values in the last 3 years. The amount was lost between April 2019, when the implementation of the policy started, and March this year, when it was reviewed. 3 topical matters. West Africa's dangerous tag, according to the Chief of Defense Staff. the state losing 9 billion on the back of a reduction in benchmark values, and democracy moving beyond the ballot box. Quick reactions, Suleimana.
Well, I think that, first of all, I would want to commend the Asantehene for his usual great interventions in our development and in matters of national interest. Indeed, democracy has to move beyond the ballot box, because so far that is where the trap that we are caught in. It's one election to the other. And after the 2020 election, I had a meeting with a number of diplomats, and one of the questions that came up quite strongly was, and this was in 2021, and the question was, why is the conversations in the country seeming like there's going to be another election this year or next year? Because it was all about, who is going to win 2024? 2024 would not be like we had in 2020 elections. We are going to win. Who is going to be the candidate? Who is not going to be the candidate? And so on and so forth, rather than focusing on what happens in between elections. I think there has always been that conversation that, yes, elections are just one bit of the democratic exercise. But what is even more important in a democracy is what happens in between elections. We are in a democracy not because we just wanted to have the process of electing our leaders. We are in a democracy because we believe democracy guarantees the freedoms, democracy guarantees participatory development, democracy guarantees accountability and transparency in governance, and democracy caters for the needs of the marginalized. So if for about 30 years now, our democracy is simply about elections and arrangements and plans and agenda about winning the next elections right after an election is conducted, then we would continue to be where we are in terms of development. And I think that Ghana has a significant potential to develop. And I believe in what President Akufo-Addo said when he was a candidate, that we are sitting on money and yet we are suffering. So I think that Asantehene is spot on that advice. And as a nation, we need to reflect on that. The state loses 9 billion. The question is, it loses it to who? So if benchmark values have been reduced and government is not earning as much as it would have earned, where is that going? Is it cushioning people? So the other question to ask is, have the prices or prices of imported commodities that would have attracted the benchmark values that the state has lost money in, has it reduced as a result of which people have been cushioned? In other words, if that policy had not been made, was it the case that people were going to pay more? And therefore paying less now means that people are benefiting from reduced prices as a result of that intervention. So I think we don't have to just look at it from the perspective of what government is losing or what the state is losing. The question is losing it to who? And are people benefiting as a result of that intervention? I think some of these statements or some of these headlines sometimes are just PR, sometimes propaganda pieces for the government to say that, government is not making so much money or government is losing this as a result of which we are in this difficulty or in that difficulty. And briefly, Ben, on the state of insecurity in West Africa, it's a very, very troubling development. It appears that we say we are fighting the menace, but increasingly we are getting into more and more crisis. It's important that we up our game on our governance systems, improve governance, improve transparency, accountability, and improve service delivery for the people so that we can mobilize people to be in support of these interventions to help kill this crisis that confronts us. Otherwise, if unemployment continues to rise and the young people will be prepared to take $1,000 and take the gun and become members of terrorist fundamental groups, then we are all in trouble. So our governments must up their game. We as citizens must also contribute what we can to improve the system.
Two quick stories I'd like to take a swipe at in Republic Press. The first one, Agenda 111 faces setbacks. We've heard from the health minister in recent times. He has listed a number of challenges revealing that there are some, challenges facing the project, especially in Accra and Kumasi. Quoting him, "It is too early for me to predict whether we will finish or not. That is, complete the projects. But optimistically, this is what we want to do, and we try to push ourselves." This rhetoric is slightly different from what we were told a few months ago. We were told that we'll definitely be done with them by the end of our tenure. That is one story. The other story, you will not be president. Methodist priest, former prelate, tells Mahama as he challenges claims of repealing e-levy. And it's interesting because Methodist Bishop Bosomtwe Ayensu has criticized former President Mahama, saying he is out of touch with reality, and that the man of God has also questioned Mahama's decision to repeal the e-levy when he assumes office as president. And he's been saying you will not even get the nod to repeal it. How do you dilate on these two matters, Agenda 111, and then again on the Mahama story, the clergy wading into such utterances? How does that wash on you?
First of all, on the statement by the former, is it former bishop or
So he's a bishop. I think he's a former moderator for the church. He's a Methodist priest, so let's refer to him as such.
Well, I think that these people are Ghanaians. Sometimes the fact that we say the clergy they don't have to step into politics and even the issue about chiefs and all of that, I think that is becoming just a hypocritical stance. Look, let people express their views. Let people say what they think and provide reasons why they think so. So if this bishop thinks that, look, I don't think that President Mahama was a great leader, and based on certain promises that he made in the past, what he's claiming that he would do when he becomes president, I don't have confidence and faith in what he says. I think that he should express himself. To say that because he's a former bishop and so on and so forth, look, I think it's a hypocritical stance. Let people express their views and their thoughts. Let us engage them on why they think so and so on and so forth. If that's his view, I think so be it. At the end of the day...
So what people have taken issue with is that categorical stance, so to speak. You will not even be president to then come and take away the e-levy. I agree with you on this bit that everybody, regardless of where they are, should be free. Of course, there are some political positions that, of course, if you take up, you would be a bit nipped in. But I guess people are taking issue with the fact that he is being somewhat categorical. If he wasn't a good leader, you can attest to it as an individual. But when you suggest that he will not even get the nod, it is not up to you, is it? And sometimes that stokes the ire of the people against the church. Is that not the problem?
Well, that's up to the members of the church to decide that because my pastor or my bishop has said this, I'm going to quit. I don't think that we are in churches for politics. I believe that we are in churches for worshiping the Lord. And if the views of your pastor on the political landscape is what will make you quit a particular church, well, fortunately, there are all manner of churches around, and people can decide to fellowship in whatever church they deem appropriate. But otherwise, to say that bishops and so on shouldn't express their views on our political landscape, I think that that would be quite censoring them. And there's a lot of censorship on different categories of people, except that anytime we talk about censorship, we look at the media. I believe that people should express themselves. Chiefs, bishops, academics, and so on should express themselves and express their views. It's your choice to decide to agree or disagree with what their opinions are. So for me, I don't begrudge this bishop for the statement that he has made. If he thinks that Mahama will not be president, so be it. Okay. On Agenda 111, Ben, I think that increasingly our Ministry of Health is proving itself to be one of the most non-transparent, very, very opaque ministries that we have. And that comes with the lack of transparency and accountability in the administration of our health sector. And I say this for a number of reasons. We all do remember during COVID, the agreement that was signed for this testing at the airport. And till date, I don't know who signed that contract. Meanwhile, it was a health intervention. the minister during his vetting said, "Oh, I don't know anything about it," and so on and so forth. And over time, there have been quite a number of other developments that the minister and the ministry have tried to either, maneuver their way without providing whatever the concrete evidence is. Right. The very recent one involves a request that was made by Multimedia, your own group, to the ministry for information on Agenda 111, where they are cited, the costs, and so on and so forth. On 21st of March, if I recall correctly, the chief director of the ministry, signing on behalf of the minister, said that, well, the ministry does not have any information on Agenda 111. In fact, that was the report, the feedback, that was the response that was given to Multimedia, that the ministry doesn't have any information on Agenda 111. And some of us were wondering, if we're going to build 101 or so hospitals in our country, and the ministry in charge of the health sector says that it doesn't have information on Agenda 111 or that health intervention, then who has it?
Right.
So I tweeted a number of times asking a number of questions. Later, my information was that, or is that, Agenda 111 is a project that is being executed directly through the presidency. So the contracts are being awarded at the presidency. And in fact, I have discussed with a few colleagues in the office that we should then file a request to the presidency to ask for information on Agenda 111.
Right.
First of all, because the ministry says it doesn't have any information on it. And then secondly, we have information that it has been executed directly through the presidency. So the same minister who said we don't have any information on Agenda 111 is today the person who is saying a lot about Agenda 111, whether it's going to be completed, whether architectural designs are going to be modified, and whether, the issues about land acquisition in some areas and so on. So was the ministry, the chief director, who signed on behalf of the minister?
Right.
Was it the case that they were deliberately refusing to give the information? Was it the case that they were lying? Or it was just the case that they have, perpetrated these acts of opacity and non-transparent ways of doing things to the extent that they think, well, for almost everything, we should just indulge in these acts of not being transparent with the people. So perhaps Multimedia should go back to the ministry to ask for the information now that we know that the minister and the ministry has that information that was being
I'll tell you this for a fact. We are unperturbed, and like you're suggesting, if there's a trail, we shall follow it, sniff out the information, and let the public know what they ought to. Just to wrap with 3 headlines from 3 different papers, you can pick one to dilate on, and it's a wrap. Ghanaian Times, Ghana's oil production falls by more than 17%. That's according to PIAC. That's the first one. The Daily Guide says Ghana ranked 8th richest in Africa. It has to do with our GDP. And of course, we're doing better than... So our current value is 74.26 billion, putting us ahead of the Ivory Coast and Angola, whose economies were valued at 70.99 billion and 66.49 billion, respectively. And the final story, the Ghanaian publisher, Ghana needs over $412 million to eradicate malaria by 2025. Which is your pick? Quickly, and then we shall wrap.
Well, I think that all these are very important topics. The oil sector story, I think, is quite important, that our oil production capacity has dropped by 17%. I doubt it's because we don't have the volumes on the ground or wherever we are pumping the oil from. That it could be as a result of some mechanical issues and so on. But for me, the critical point has been when people ask, oh, so what is the difference between when we didn't have oil and now that we have oil in terms of fuel prices, in terms of the economy, in terms of money in people's pockets and so on and so forth? Of course, those of us who read know the contribution of the oil sector to our economy. And because this is coming from PIAC, I think that PIAC over the years has been revealing how the state has not been accountable for millions of oil revenues. And so far, it's been just revelation. And then the next time we wait for another revelation about how projects that were said to have been constructed with oil money are non-existent
right.
and cannot be fined. Contracts that were signed without transparency, and how we are unaccountable with our oil resources. I think for me, the fundamental point remains, how are we going to be accountable for whatever resources that we have?
Right.
And we are being told that we are becoming one of the richest in Africa, 74 point something billion in GDP. Is that translating to the well-being and the welfare of the people? For me, that is what is critical. We are seeing inequality rising. What that means is that a lot more money getting into fewer pockets. And I think that is not something that bodes well for our society and our development and our cohesion. As much as possible, we should spread so that there will be some level of equity in our society.
Right.
And that's what I would say to these stories that you just read.
Suleimana Nagode, God richly bless you, and do have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
And that is Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. He joined us for a conversation. Up next, we serve you sports. Do stay.